Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
You understand the mechanism?
Yes, Morpheus. A simple blaster.
Welcome. I haven't even decided what to call this week yet. I think it's going to be another odds and ends week. I'm waiting for a few things to come in the mail. And that's always, it harkens me back to my childhood of waiting 6 to 8 weeks for something I've sent to Battle Creek, Michigan for. But whilst I'm awaiting some very fun things in the mail, you can hear the printer printing in the background. I will give you a peek at what it's working on. And yes, for people who have asked, that is the frozen transform that I am printing with. And you can see this massive thing, which is a couple of big parts. It has been printing for the better part of a day and a half. No, I said it yesterday afternoon. It still has 7 hours to go. So we're going to see what kind of results come out of that. We'll be working on that this week, hopefully. I still have about 3 more files worth of things to print on that project. But what I'm going to be working on today, because it's a quick thing to finish up, is this Forbidden Planet blaster. Never mind the tail you see right here. This Forbidden Planet blaster. This was put up on Thingiverse by a gentleman named from RoboHut, and when I grow up, I want to be him. He has put out all kinds of fantastic things. His primary interest is Robbie from Forbidden Planet, and he's made quite a few, and he's put up parts on how to make your own, that kind of stuff. But he uploaded these files for this blaster, and this was done back in the day when I was still printing everything solid, and it really feels that this handle is solid, but the way he designed it was for a cutout for the trigger. But this is a very simple, it's a simple blaster, if you remember your movie correctly. It is a simple blaster, and what I am doing is putting this very simple lighting circuit in it that, if I can get the wires to cooperate, very simple. He designed it in such a way that the switch goes down into the, there you go. See, it's a simple on-off switch. And this was also back in the day, I printed this back in the day when I had a single jug of clear resin to print with. And I'm not really wild about these results. It's kind of yellowed. It's not the best. I don't think I got the best resin, but it's just experimenting. And you can see where there's a hole where it blew out when I was printing it, but I don't have any more, so I'm making this do. But take a little strip light, you put it in here, and it lights up the whole deal. Again, less is more. It's not a blinding light. And then you put this tip on the end of it, and this is the whole deal. And it lights up enough to give you the idea that you are using a blaster. Now the light does not extend all the way into the tip like I wish it would. Maybe a slightly longer segment of LEDs would do the trick. I have to see. Yeah, to get it to go all the way up in there, I would probably have to wire a separate bulb. Let me see how that would work. If I could wire this in such a way. But the way he has designed this is this all pretty much works in a drawer. It's big enough that you can sit your battery on it like this. And then this, you put your lights out through this hole. This attaches to this, to the front clear piece. And then he's got a very clever screw mechanism for the whole thing just screws into the top. And there's no worry about how to glue that on there, how to get in there and change the battery. Just screws in. Easy, quick, easy change. And then all I would need to do is paint the silver details on this. So that's what I'm gonna check to see whether or not I can tuck a clear bulb all the way up in there. Let's see what that looks like. See if it's worth the work. Come on. Oh, let me get back to you. Okay, I've got all of the wiring, simple as it is. I just got it on this nice little base that's provided as a kit part. And I'm going to, I've got plenty of slack here so that I can twist this wire as I need to. So let me go ahead and shove it all back in. Make sure there's room for everybody. And screw this on. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pull the trigger and boom. There you go. I like it. It's one instance where the camera blowing out what LEDs do is actually a good thing, because it makes it look maybe a little brighter than it actually is. But yeah, no sound effects, but still you can go pew pew yourself. And then whenever you need to change the battery, you just unscrew this and pop the battery off and put a new one in. I like it when you can get in and get out and change the battery without having to unmake the world to do it. Now I just need to paint the details on it, so I need to get out the silver paint and a handy good reference. I know the edges of these are silver, and I know this shape back here is silver, so I just need to get some good references rounded up. But yeah, that's it for a Monday. So here you go, silver painted accents. Hit the firing button and ba-bam. Now this file also came with this wonderful base for it, and I need to decide what color to paint that. Something contrasting, I'm thinking. That's something that's not any of the same colors. Maybe a bright red would be nice. Welcome back. It's Tuesday. You'll have to forgive me. I went on a bit of a tear today. Woke up this morning and I started cleaning things. And I mean, not just, you know, running the vacuum. I'm talking about mopping floors and stuff. So I've learned that if I don't indulge those impulses when they get here, then things go far too long without being cleaned. So something psychologically was telling me it was time to clean. So yesterday you saw me working on this, and today I've got the little stand that it sits in the cradle. That's outside. I've spray painted that, and I'm giving it a couple of coats, and I want to make sure that it dries in between. So that's outside. I have good news to report out of Printerland. I started what would be the next big project in model making to print, and if you recognize this, you'll know what I am up to. It is a travel pod from Star Trek The Motion Picture. Probably the only, outside of the work bee, the only kit or subject not to have been made into a model from that fine motion picture. But this was available online. I did have to pay for it. I don't mind paying for it because it's a nice size. But that's this alone, this and these two figures took 30 hours to print. 30 hours to print, and so that, you know, day and 6 hours. So I was very cautious, and of course I broke it when I was pulling it off of the supports, but I was able to glue it back together. This was a separate piece to this horseshoe, and I went ahead and glued that in last night when I got everything off of the printer, just so that I know it would keep its shape. And right now you hear more stuff printing, and that will be more of the interior walls in the airlock. And then I have one more other big file to print, which is the inside shell, and then there will be a very small file to print after that, that is some stuff that are some flat walls that are sitting on the plate. So I'm hoping within the next, as this week goes on, I will have all of the parts together, so that hopefully next week I can start putting this thing together. I might even start it this week, but right now I'm still doing the cleanup on it, and there are plenty of opportunities for cleanup. So that's coming. What I want to do today and tomorrow is get the shuttle finished. I have masked off the front windows again so that I can put a clear coat on everything. But I want to touch the I need to touch up this dark gray paint, and I need to touch up the lighter color, and you can see the battery just flying out the window. That's something else I need to take care of. I think I want to put a little bit of Velcro on that to kind of hold it in place. But that goes back in there, so I might even be better off taking that battery out while I'm doing all this jostling so that it won't be tempted to jingle around. So I've sanded this back area, but I need to get the paints out to patch them, and then I shall be able to put the clear coats and the decals on. The shuttle is out on the deck. I've put a coat of clear on it, and it's drying. I will hit it again once that has dried. But I pulled in the stand for the gun, for the blaster, for the simple blaster Morbius. There you go. It's just like that. Now I can add that to the display room. Pew pew. Thing is, it does a pretty good job of covering up the trigger when it's in the stand, so you can't really get up in there to play with it too much. Here we go. Okay, everything is drying in one form or another, so I thought I would take another quick toe dip into the world of 3D printing. This is the support structure that came out of this part here. Now when I printed it, or when I was working on the computer, I made sure that this area, which I presumed would be the weakest, would have a lot of support. So I threw a lot of supports in there. And then this is the back section that, of course, now I've cut this off, so this was the piece here that ultimately failed anyway because it was too thin. But this was the support structure going up to it. And from this I can learn a lot. I think it's attractive, and I think it's a beautiful thing in its own right. But I can learn from that these lighter settings, this is like the heaviest settings here, and there's a lattice work in here that is my medium settings, and then the really fine stuff is the lightest settings. And I can tell from that my lighter settings just aren't good enough. They fail a lot of the times. Here's a nice little bit that didn't, and I could use that as something in the future as a scratch build or as a pattern behind a window or something. So I hang on to stuff like this. It's good to throw in the scratch building box if I ever decide to do some scratch building. But something like this, you could imagine, okay, that's just pipes running. If you wanted to do a hangar deck or something, you'd have a lot of these type of pipes running back and forth. So it's nothing hopefully will go to waste. You can use it somewhere. But oftentimes when you're printing, something will fail or fall off the support, and you wonder why. And this is a good opportunity to really do a little bit of an autopsy on this to see whether it's working. You can see where there was some failure here because this support didn't go all the way to the ground, or you can see where things just died out because they either had too much weight on it, or something may have been wrong, or there might have been a dirt spot or a chunk in the resin. But if you know what to look for, you can spot a lot of interesting stuff going on. But okay, we're getting ready to wrap up for today, Tuesday, and before we do, the last thing I want to do is the decaling on the shuttle. Now this is only going to need just a bare few because of the features that I've chosen. Obviously, if the pennants have been painted, I don't need to use any of those decals. And if I'm not opening the back panel, then I don't need to use any of those decals. So all that really leaves are the wee ones that go around the doorway and the ones that go on the back hatch, and this doorway, this access panel, and this red hatch here. So I've got the decal for, and I probably have to get my instructions back out. This is the one that goes under here, that goes under there. This one goes by the doorway. This is the push sign and the access hatch for the back. So just about, what, let me do a quick count. That's 5 decals. So I've got a full sheet of decals left over here. Whatever will I do with them? Yeah, I don't need any of those wiring ones. I don't need the numbers, don't need the alternate names, don't need the circuits. Yep, the whole thing goes back in the box. And there you go. So let me get the ones on the back here, since they are off all by themselves. That is the access hatch and the long skinny number 12. That's just white lettering that goes over this painted. If you use the decal, then you need to put, there's a decal for this whole thing, or if you painted it, then you just need the lettering that goes there. So you pull that one out. That's tough to see. It's white lettering, and that's all it is. So white lettering, that goes on the paper towel. And then the equipment hatch number 14, that goes on the paper towel. So let's get those two out. Those are ready to go. And then this one goes up under the nacelle, which is in place this time, so that's going to make it a little bit more difficult than when I did it last time, because I didn't have the nacelle attached last time. Let's see, Exacto, wipe the blade off, and a little bit of foam. Okay, goes down into the foam. That was simple enough, took all of 5 minutes, and that was because I was taking my time. But here you go, I've got the tiny nonsense registry wording that goes here. I've got the little push sign, I've got the red rectangle there, access hatch with access door handle wording, and the sensor equipment wording there. So that's all the decals that we are going to use. So now I will wait for those to dry and put a quick zots of semi-gloss over top of them, and we'll be ready to break a bottle over this and call it done. It's almost done. I still I'm thinking about putting a light or some cabin light just behind where those windows in the door would be, so that we can get some additional life going on there. Good morning, folks. It's Wednesday. We're back at it. Have more results to show you from yesterday's printing. I have now a ceiling on the pod, and I went ahead and glued this in last night and epoxied it in because I wanted it to use it to make this part here stronger. And also, if it's gonna warp or anything, I want these pieces to kind of all shrink together. I don't even know how much of a real thing resin shrinkage is, but you know, why take a chance if you don't have to? Plus, like I said, these are two parts that I know I can still work in and around, and they're just stronger together than they would be if I had continued to work on them separately. And that brings me to today's lesson in 3D printing. Not that this is going to be becoming a 3D channel, but there is a delicate balance between over supporting something and under supporting something. If you over support it, it'll stick to your build plate just fine and print fine and dandy, but you can end up with what I call chicken skin, which is a lot of these supports that you will see, they'll leave dimples in the back end. So knowing how to orient it on your plate is important, because this could be, you know, crappy dirty all day long. I don't need to see that. You want to make sure that your visible face is what is free from these supports. So planning on where to put your supports so that you can minimize your cleanup is the first job. If you say, oh, I don't need so many supports and I can do less, well, then you might find your pieces, you know, not sticking to the, not that they don't stick to the plate, but that the support's printed fine, but then your piece falls off the supports. Here's another example of some of that chicken skinning going on in here. Again, I put it in a place where I don't mind, because you're never going to see that. So that's your somewhat of a lesson today. This is all the other parts that I got printed, which are interior pieces. This is the interior roof. This is the interior back wall, and these are beautiful, come out beautifully flat. They are not warping at all, which is great and amazing, and something I am learning. And then this is the docking ring, which will go on the back wall, which has not printed yet. So it's all coming together. This was another day's worth of printing. I've got another 12 hours on something that I started last night at 10 o'clock. It's been 12 hours. It's got 12 hours to go. So it's about another 24-hour print job. And that'll be some of the interior walls. Hopefully what my goal is today's Wednesday. If I can get all of the parts printed this week, and that means also going back, if any part has failed, to go back and reprint that, then hopefully what that means is I can have all my parts ready, and this will be next week's next week's video. But today, the subject of today is what you see staring in front of you. This is the D10 Klingon Battlecruiser. This was sent to me by Jeffrey Griffin with one simple marching order, one simple job. I have one job. He wants me to, quote, Katinga the hell out of this. And what that means is he wants me to add plating to this, and that in such a way as to be reminiscent of the plating that is on the Katinga. So what I first need to do is take a look at it. I'm going to trace out all of the planes of the, you know, all the dimensions of everything, and then I'm going to trace those off, scan them, put them in the computer, pull out my trusty file for my Katinga masks, and then just start adapting things and seeing how they work and how they look best. He did mention that the engraved pieces that he had already tried, he wanted me to go ahead and to cover those up. So I'm not to pay any attention to the markings that he's already indented. He had some custom nacelles made for this that are beautiful. I probably won't touch those so much because they are nicely done and they really don't need my help. I'll look at the Katinga and see what panels are on the nacelles, and I don't believe that there are many. I think these are very well handled, but I can carry over some of the masks that are on the neck and boom, and certainly some that are on the body. I'm not going to make them a mirror image of the Katinga, but certainly I can use that as a flavor. I've been continuing work on the D10 here for Jeffrey, and it's just been boring computer work, so you don't need to see that. And plus I feel like I need to give him first crack at it, so I don't want to necessarily put anything up there and surprise him with it. I want him to have the right of first refusal and to help me change my mind on some stuff before I go and releasing it publicly. So I've got a design that I like. It's not, I won't say it's a first shot because I've been going through and revising things all along. So, but I think what I want to do is shoot him a quick email and see what his opinion is of it before I show it to the rest of the class. Let's take a look at what the Magic Machine is doing. As you can see, there's 3255 number of layers. I've got 2048 printed. big old windows, and yes, this is the mighty frozen transform. And you can see the shells, the inner shells are what's printing, and to me what's important is what's going on inside there. This outside that you see, that is never going to be seen by the human eye, so I can put all of my supports along the outside. But as you may or may not be able to tell from here, I have learned that I need to beef up the size of all of my supports when I'm printing large things. But here you can see it just going happily up and down in the vat, and then the UV light shines, and that tells me and right now it's shining for 9.5 seconds per layer, and that has been what I have found on these larger, flatter shapes that I need. So it's just going to do this for another 9 hours. Alrighty, I just got a rather enthusiastic approval from Jeffrey, so I figured I'm confident enough to go ahead and show what I've come up with. This is the pattern for the top of the hull, and I think it strikes all of the particularly Katinga-ish notes. It's got a lot of Katinga-like shapes in it. Looks like it's in the same family, but doesn't try to mirror what Katinga would look like. Doesn't try to force the exact same geometry. Well, good. The only thing that's really pretty much a word-for-word duplication is what's on the underside of the nacelles, the pylons. Since it's a very similar shape, I used the same design and altered it slightly. But as far as the up top, that's mostly going back in and redrawing stuff. Okay, folks, here it is. It's about 10 after 10 at night. We are on the last layer of the print job. It's down to 0 hours and 0 minutes. Level 3255 out of 3255. And we're going to show you how long, once this finishes, 24 hours 10 minutes was the time of that job. 24 hours and 10 minutes. So once I clean this off, I'm shutting this down because it's been running for about 2 days straight. Morning, everyone. It's Thursday. I continue to amass more parts for the travel pod. Last night I stayed up a little bit late and cleaned off the inner shell parts. And this is what I was talking about as far as that chicken skin. You're going to get a whole bunch of mess where the supports attach, but I don't care about any of that because that's all hidden as long as the inside is clean. Think of this as the back of the model part. Do you really care what the back of your model parts look like? No, you don't. And I went ahead and glued these two halves together because I didn't want them deforming in the curing process. I'm getting a little bit of warpage on this wall here that I'm not wild about, and I'm hoping I can work that out when it comes time to line it up with the roof piece, that I can work that warp line back out. There's a limit to how much of this I want to build before I can even paint it, because it becomes difficult to get paint in there, obviously. So I'm hoping that once it's cured and dried up a bit, I would still consider these pieces almost like they were wet. And they've not been fully cured. So I'm hoping that I can clamp a flat piece on that and let it cure flat. And maybe that'll take that warp out of there. The smaller pieces are coming out fantastic. These are the two side computer banks and the benches. These are coming out wonderfully, and these thicker walls, when there's enough meat on them to make them lay flat, they're coming out great. This is the inside rear wall, and I tried a quick run this morning, and it was quick because it was only like 45 minutes. Because it was so flat, I could play the whole thing on the plate, print it, and it only took 45 minutes to print this back wall. But I did notice that some of the detail did not come out. And that's the danger of printing things flat against the plate, is that you can get some rather careless printing. And so I'm going to be reprinting this with the plate angled, or the wall angled on the plate like you should. Now that means the inside is going to be full up on these, these chicken skin supports, but I don't care about that again because that is not going to be visible in the final kit. What it does allow me to do, this piece here, is to kind of size some of these other parts and make sure everything is going to work just fine. And since I have another plate to run where I have an object at least this tall, I'm taking that advantage to reprint a couple things that didn't work out so well. Kirk and Scotty. Now these could be easily sculpted. Obviously Kirk lost an arm, but I could sculpt whatever is missing on that. But since I've got I have to run another plate or another print job, I can put another copy of those on there, and I think I'm going to print another ring, just belt and suspenders, because this has got some aberrations on it that would be easier to reprint than it would be to clean up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up a new file, get it going, and then we're going to get on to today's job, which is, today's job is to put the plating on Jeffrey's Klingon D10 and get that buttoned up so that I can get it mailed back to him this week. So I've just weeded all the shapes for Jeffrey's Battlecruiser, and what I'm going to do now is put some transfer tape over all of that so that I can cut the sections up and apply them one by one to the little hull here. And here you can see I've got a little bit more than half of the top of the shapes put down. They're going down pretty easily. A little bit of adjusting here and there because this being a garage kit, and I mean that as no disrespect, but as a handmade kit, the symmetry is not exactly there. This side, for example, is a little narrower than this side, but you pick up the pieces and you move them around and you adjust and you trim and get on with your life, because that's how things go. And here is the bottom side with the wings, if you can subtly see what I'm doing there. Again, I'm running into the wall of asymmetry here. These are pretty good. These are a little wonky to each other, but you can pick up even if it's something as subtle as picking up a point here and then scooching it over just a little bit to line it up or to get it out of the way, then I think you're fine. Like this piece here, I would want to change the inner slope of that to meet this indent, so I would probably pull it out something like that just to line it up just that little bit better. And I can do that on these other ones too, to follow the line of the indent, which is not in exactly the same place on both sides. That's what I'm talking about when I mention the symmetry. The landmark shapes, those which you cannot work around. See, now I can move those out slightly, just enough to trick the eye. And now it's time to I'm not going to do anything for these nacelles because they're beautiful. These are ones he had specifically whipped up for this design. They are an extended version of the classic D7 or Katinga nacelle, and they're in beautiful shape, so I don't think I need to add anything to them. I do need to add some subtle stuff to the head and the boom, and I'm going to do that right after I take a short break. Okay, wrapping up Thursday evening with the templates put on the Battlecruiser for Jeffrey, and I've shot off an email to get his approval. Once these are approved, I will cut him or plot him a few sets and then package everything up to send back to him. But here you go. This is the underside. Now, I'm not, like I said, I didn't put anything on the engines because those are beautiful by themselves. But here's the underside, and you can see the the bird pattern. Hopefully notice the bird pattern on the wings up here. And I don't think you saw the neck and boom. And again, the top of the neck and the cobra head. So once we get the okay from Jeffrey, then this project will be wrapped up. Well, good morning, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week, and I gotta confess that I'm a bit at loose ends today. I've got Jeffrey's battleship, his D10 is all packaged up. I've got the new templates ready to go for him. Gonna mail that off today. I started I hate to say that I'm working on it because I really want that to be next week's video, but I have been forced to put some pieces together on this pod, if only to keep them oriented. And this may be something dealing with the resin, but it was starting to warp out of shape to me, and I didn't like that. So I figured if I could put some of the pieces together, at least rubber band them together, that will keep them in the right orientation, in the right shape until I can get to working on them. And I'm still struggling with a couple parts that I have reprinted and I need to reprint, and will probably end up printing again, but that's next week. So I'm going to think of something I can start and finish today, and I am down to this. This is also another weapon in my arsenal of fictional weapons. This is the third season blaster from Lost in Space, their laser. And I printed this off. A gentleman sent me the file for it, and I printed it and gave it a high gloss silver finish, and it took forever and a day to get it dry enough to handle. Every time I was touching it, I felt like I was putting fingerprints in it. But it is finally dry enough to the touch. Was not involved enough to put a light in this like I did the Forbidden Planet blaster. It was good enough for me just to have it as a static piece. And this was my first experiment with in software construction, because the handle was two halves, left and right. Actually, a lot of this was in two halves, left and right. And rather than printing them, gluing them, and sanding it after that, I actually joined up the pieces in the software, and by overlapping them slightly, like the left hand and the right hand side of this, or half of this handle, I just put them together and then overlapped them just by a hair, and that made it a single solid piece, and printed it that way, and that way I didn't have to sand it when it came out. So it's finally dry enough to handle. This was a remnant from back when I was printing in clear. I have to do another batch of clear someday, and I want to glue in this tip, and that's really all there is to it. But I want to make some sort of nice hanging display for it so that I can put it up on the wall, and I think I can do that today and get it done in such a way that it will be a worthy thing to finish out the week. Okay, so I think I've come up with an idea that's going to work for these gloomy, dark, rainy days, and that is I've taken this piece of wood here that I'm going to use, and I have put the hangers on the back of it, and then rather than painting it, I'm going to cover it with felt. I've got plenty of felt that has adhesive backing on it that I use for the bottom of my model bases. All I need to do at this point is drill out for 2 pieces of coat hanger wire that I'm going to use to hang it from, and then I can poke the felt down over top of those 2 pieces, lay it all out flat, stick it down, do all the edging, and then bend the wiring the way I need it. Okay, I've got my pieces of wire cut. I've got the Dremel with the correct bit in it. These are my pieces of wire. And I just need to drill a couple holes, and if they will sit in there by themselves, that's good. If not, I can epoxy them in place. Okay, here's my simple but lovely gun stand. And the nice thing about this design on the Robinson's gun is it has these 3 holes in the back here, so I can just put the pin through one of them and then rest it on this forward pin. And I think I may want to put a little bend in that to hold it in place, but there There you go, done. I think if I put a cap on there, that might make it difficult to pull off, but all I need to do now is put the epoxy in the tip there, and it'll be ready to hang. Yeah, I just did some quick online research, and it was online, so you know it must be right. It must be true, must be accurate. But I'm just doing a little bit of punching up of some details on the Lost in Space pistol. I glued some rhinestones there on the back to give it some color. Painted in the ball here. I'm going to do this detail up here and this inner trigger detail in a gunmetal. I don't want to do anything black because it'll put it against the black stand or the black backdrop. It'll disappear. So gunmetal I think is subtle enough. Okay, that gives it a little more life. I just went ahead and there you can see it. The gunmetal, when you shine the light on it in different, or when it catches the light at different angles, it is more or less dark. I may want to hit that trigger with a black, but if I do, it's going to disappear against the background. I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to pay. Never mind. Pay no attention to the idiot behind the curtain. Let this dry, and I'm ready to go hang it. And there you go, resting in its final place off on the wall. The Lost in Space second and third season hand pistol, 3D printed, and actually, you know, I realized how many guns I have been printing. I printed out the Forbidden Planet blaster, the Lost in Space pistol, the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. I'm going to get into a rather self-destructive mode here. About the only thing left would be a full-size batleth, and even my printer can't handle that one. Okay, so gone through a lot of little miscellaneous stuff this week, and this is the only guy left on the table that I haven't really done anything with. Hello. And because I'm not exactly sure how I want to do it. Now, it was of course designed to be mobile. As you can see, all of these joints that you can pose and do all of that stuff with. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's a failing of the resin versus the idea of resin versus filament. Of course, the more you use these joints, the more they wear out, because this resin is a softer material than if it were PLA plastic. So these joints are eventually going to wear out just through the process of sanding against each other. So I'm left with the idea that maybe I need to find a good pose for it and glue it into that pose, freeze it into that pose, and display it that way. I just haven't figured out the best pose for that to be yet. Whether it's going to be, if I had a mannequin head that I could face hug it onto, or whether I could just you see, I bring it back here so I can see whether he's in picture or not. Okay, turn this around. Whether or not I want to just have him as a posed thing, like he was getting ready to attack, or what. So that's kind of where my brain is at now. Is like, do I want to freeze him in a particular pose, something like that? He won't stand up to too much repeated abuse. So I need to, and the tail wants to come off, so finding a good pose to lock him into is kind of where I'm at. I could do the autopsy version where he's laying on his back with his arms and his legs kind of, pinched up like a dead spider. I'm not 100% sure. So I'll have to think on that this weekend and then let you know. Because once these joints, I know it's designed to look like a skeleton almost, but once I lock the joints in place, I could fill them in with epoxy sculpt to just make a regular sculpture out of it at that point, because I would be losing the reason to keep it posable if I glued them in place. So I can lay it all out like a, Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and I can't remember the title of it. It's the guy on the chart with the arms out and the legs out. I could do a Vitruvian alien, or I can make a wall hanging out of it or something. So, more things to ponder. Well, that was a week, wasn't it? Strange week. I don't feel like I've got near as much done as I wanted to. Kept bouncing from project to project, finishing up like the last 5% of 3 or 4 different projects rather than starting anything new. But it's good because it means I've got an empty table, an empty plate in front of me. And I promise next week's show will be much more, hopefully, to what you've become accustomed to, where we take a model from beginning to end. It'll just be a bit different model. It will be of a 3D nature, and I feel like I've been cheating and giving you too much of a head start on this. So until next week, be good. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Take some mental time. Take some time to sit and just be. And there's so much craziness going on that sometimes you can, it's like you feel like you're paddling in a river. You just have to go with the flow sometimes. So until next week, as I've said, be good. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. And we'll see you here next time.